Lombardi said, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence.
But I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done.
Welcome, folks, to the 10th edition of the Breakfast Ball. Before we get started here, I'd just like to say that thank you. As of today, we're roughly about 8.5 weeks into our YouTube experience, and we're pushing somewhere around 120 subscribers and 27,000 views. So if you can keep watching, guys, we'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone out there. Now, with that said, I'm your host, Bob Cardia. To my far left, your far right, the dashing Richie Stoltz. And in the middle, folks, we try to get this guy on for 3 weeks after his very successful North American tour. The Hammer, Chris Hammerquist, is our special guest today on the Breakfast Ball. Today's title is Progress, Not Perfection, which, I got actually the idea from Richie, because Richie, I heard him telling one of his students, Richie said, progression is and not perfection. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. So having Hammer in as a guest, we met, I guess, at your cigar bar. Monday, was it? We were there?
Yeah,
Monday.
Heritage.
Yeah, Heritage. So we're at the cigar bar, and I'm like, Chris, we got this great idea for a show. It's called Progress and Not Perfection. And he looked at me, and he's like, you do realize I counsel people, and that's an AA slogan. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea. So I wasn't doubting you, because
He was doubting you.
Yeah,
He was doubting. He was doubting. Sure.
I went online and I read, and sure enough, yeah, in the 1930s, when AA started, it's about 80 years old. It's an anonymous quote, but it's awesome. Progress and not perfection. And for those of you who know me, I've been coaching at Rutgers now for 31 years this spring. And by the way, just on a personal note, thoughts and prayers to Jeff Dean's family. We started together at Rutgers 31 years ago. He started the semester before I did. He was the baseball coach and then got promoted to the athletic director. Unfortunately, Jeff passed away this past Monday, and I just want to recognize that and thoughts and prayers to his family. Anyway, in the midst of coaching, I perfection, like Tiger talks about trying to be perfect all the time, and perfection, I guess. Salvador Dali said something to the effect that don't worry about not achieving perfection, because it's not achievable. But I come in a different door. I come in the Vince Lombardi door. So I want to make sure I got the quote right. So Lombardi said, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. I love it, and I know you and I talk about stuff like that, and you and I talk about stuff like that. That's that mindset is how you get to where you need to be. We're all big fans of Les Brown, and that when he says, most people don't reach their goals, not because they set their goals for the stratosphere and don't get there. Most people don't reach their goals because they set their goals for mediocre, and they do. So, with that said, our highly esteemed guest today, Chris Hammerquist. Chris, what's your job title again?
Well, first, Bob, thank you. Thank you for humbling me to be part of your show, and I'm grateful. And one thing I can say about Bob and Richie, they just came up with this idea and said they were going to do it, and they're going to create a podcast. And so what you're seeing with this podcast is exactly what you just laid out. It's progress, not perfection, right, Richie?
Yes, exactly.
So great that you're able to recognize that. You're a man of much wisdom at such a young age. I call you an old soul, right?
Well, Richie and I love to be perfect. That's for sure.
But progress, not perfection. So Bob asked what my job title is, and I'm not a big guy on titles, right? So for me, it's not self-deprecation, but it is humility. I'm fortunate enough to be part of a startup company out of Santa Clara, California. It's called Applied Cells. And we have some really cool novel technology that will isolate immune cells from your blood. And then what they can do downstream from that is genetically modify those cells right? And so they make them stronger and put them back into your body to kill cancer, right? So personalized healthcare is really where we're at. And our technology is
Basically,
really...
what he's saying he's far more intelligent than you and I.
No.
I don't think he's saying it, but that's it's true.
Anybody who watching this for 2 months says, man, damn, they got themselves a smart one.
No, but in all seriousness, like, we're actually going through that ourselves, right? Progress, not perfection. As a startup, I've never worked for a startup. And let me tell you, it's the most roller coaster ride role I've ever had. But we keep making progress, right? We're not perfect. We're learning as we go, and we continue to redesign and change things to meet our customers' needs. So that's the plug for my company. I'm done with that. Sorry.
Your job title.
So I'm the director of our commercial business for North America, which means what? Which means I get to help put salespeople in place, build out the team, start to help my marketing people, identify the things in the target markets that we want to go after and segment the space. So essentially, I'm a glorified salesperson.
You are a very successful salesperson. I know at one point for Roche, you were one of the top salespeople in the company, which that's it. People know Roche through COVID and whatnot is one of the largest companies that does pharmaceuticals in the world. But with that said, so let's look at this. Chris and I have been friends now, one of my dearest, best friends in the world, since our kids played t-ball together, which is 20 years ago now. And he and I and our dear friend Brad used to go out on Friday nights to do the batting averages, which basically just guy time where we would go out and solve all the world's problems at that point, right? I'm fairly sure we cured cancer and split atoms, but anyway.
We definitely got batting averages.
We got batting averages every week. We did. We got advanced computations, but so I got to learn about Chris, and we're huge fans of Eric Thomas and Les Brown. And I consider Chris to be the South Jersey version of both of those guys. And I love humility. Chris is a very humble guy, but talking to Chris, his upbringing, he's like, when I was a kid, the family structure wasn't quite what he wanted it to be, and he ended up basically dropping out of high school and just wandering the streets. And I'm like, what the heck, where you are today. And he goes through this whole progression as he went from that not knowing what he wanted to do in life. Then he joins the Navy, right? And from joining the Navy, what was your initial? What was your initial?
I was a boatswain's mate.
Right.
Going into boot camp, I was a boatswain's mate. My recruiter sold me a bag of goods, man. I was hot. I had no idea what a boatswain's mate was. Right?
You were saying you thought it was a good thing at that point.
I was like, well, he said, this is what he sold me on, right? He says, your job in the Navy is to protect the ship's integrity. The integrity of the ship, what's more important than that, right? When you're in the middle of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Turns out that a boatswain's mate, and it's not a bad thing, right? And everybody has a job, but it wasn't for me. Is the people who paint and chip and mop and clean. And honestly, that's probably mentally where I belong to be at that point in my life.
Right.
But once I went to boot camp, I started to get my act together.
Yep.
Right. I had discipline. Mm-hmm. I had structure. I had some company commanders screaming in my face, telling me how screwed up I was, and I needed to get my shit together.
Bob does that to me all the time.
Right?
And it's working, right?
Right. And so something clicked like halfway through boot camp, and I just started to become, AJ squared away, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I started to work hard, and the company commanders saw that in me. And you go to school and you get educated while you're in there, and I did really well at that. And they offered me any duty station I wanted, right? So I became an operations specialist, and I got sent to school down in Norfolk, actually Dam Neck, Virginia. And that's kind of where it began for me. I started to really kind of focus and work hard. And as an operations specialist, so from boatswain's mate to OS was a significant difference. Now I'm in Combat Information Center dealing with the commanding officer and the executive officer of the ship, providing them data on submarines and aircraft and other ships that are out there, and tracking.
That's awesome.
So it was
Big jump.
It was a big jump,
You were in
right?
the military for 4 years, right?
I was in for 8.
Hey, wow, that's I didn't even realize it. So then after that, you left, and then I guess you met someone that had your first child, right?
Yeah, so still not making the best decisions in
Yeah.
life, but I had a really beautiful blessing come from that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a son, Anthony.
Anthony was
who's-
great. Anthony,
who's
if you need
the
your house
best.
roofed, by the way, he roofed my other house. He
Yeah.
does fantastic work.
I'm really proud of him. Like he's really overcome a lot of adversity
Yes,
in his
yes,
life.
Yes, he has. And we could actually do that story on a different day.
Yeah,
too,
you can have
'cause-
Anthony come on
Yeah,
and probably
right.
share your story, his
Yep.
story from
Yep.
his perspective.
Yep.
But I'm really proud of him, and I'm proud of all my kids.
Oh, of
actually.
course, obviously. I grew up with your kids. I love your kids.
Yeah.
So from there, right? Unfortunately, the decisions. I guess your girlfriend at the time had left, right? And you raised Anthony on your own. But so
Yeah.
now you're a single dad out of the military, and you put yourself basically through college, and then you start working your way up the ladder. And I guess what was your first job in sales? What was that?
My first job was a company called Biochemical Sciences. They were out of Swedesboro. And I didn't go directly into sales. I worked at a hospital lab as a histologist for a while. And then I kind of got recruited into becoming a technical support person at Biochemical Sciences, training people in histology. We were a histology cytology company, which essentially means we take your body parts and we help the pathologist figure out what's wrong with you, right? Cancer.
Richie and I are both sitting here wondering what histology is.
Yeah. So,
That wasn't the only one.
Right.
you
I'm
ever see
nodding
the
like
slides that people look at under the microscope?
Right.
It's really thin layers of whatever tissue that we decide that needs to be looked at.
Okay.
So any surgery that's done in a hospital, they have to go to the pathologist and figure out what was going on. So it was a cool job. I enjoyed it, but I felt like I needed more. Right, doing the 9 to 5 for me, that's not my personality. Having to clock in, clock out. I feel like if you work hard and you're willing to do whatever it takes to be successful, you don't need to be managed. You're just going to be self-managed because you're self-driven.
That's the quote we talk about all the time, right? Everybody is self-made, but only the successful people want to admit it. Yeah. And you and I have that conversation all the time, because that's where Chris and I we hit a chord like almost instantly. Is like and we ran actually for office together at one point. I'll say it because we're talking. I get shit done. Like that's what I do. Like that's the most things, or the most important thing to me. And what was the expression used with the plane?
You're building a plane while you're flying it.
Yeah, that's
right?
what Richie and I are hoping we don't crash into the mountain. But yes, that's what we do. We don't wait around to say but all the meetings that we go to, and we go all over the place. I mean, we would have been like at least a half dozen different places in the past year doing what we do. And you'll know right away when you go to a meeting and someone's like, and I use the same analogy all the time. Like you're pitching an idea and they're like, well, what happens if a meteor hits? Like, I mean, if that's your attitude, you're going nowhere, man. Like.
Glass of bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon, ha ha. Alcohol. Because no great story ever started with, I'll have a salad.